Guardians of the Galaxy was directed by James Gunn and it starred Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Batista, Bradley Cooper as the voice of Rocket Raccoon, and Vin Diesel as the voice of Groot. It also starred Lee Pace and Karen Gillan and Michael Rooker, among many others. Welcome back to Geek Classic, the series of reviews where we are heading down the road to Infinity War. We got this movie and Age of Ultron left. I have reviewed every single MCU movie before this, and this review, as always, will have spoilers. I bet you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy because everybody's seen Guardians of the Galaxy, so you are warned. Let's go! This was the first movie everybody doubted. This was the weird one. It was the one with a talking tree and a raccoon with a machine gun. This was, my friends, the epitome of silly that no one would buy into. I, however, amongst my group of friends at least, was the one nerd who knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were before the movie came out, when it was announced. I was the one who told them all this group isn't even 10 years old in the comics as the official main only group as the Guardians of the Galaxy. But as soon as it came out, it was adored by everyone, and to my surprise again, as the only nerd who knew they were before, this was the film most densely packed with references and characters that only hardcore fanboys would recognize, but the mere mention of these would have them foaming at the mouth, including myself, of course, because I am a nerd. It had one of the original Guardians, Yondu, played by Michael Rooker, who nails this character to the point where he had an even bigger role in the sequel when he wasn't supposed to have. It had the Ravagers, it had Nebula, it had Korath the Pursuer, who is wasted by giving Djimon Hounsou this role that I want him to have a bigger role in the movie, but that's gone now. It had the Collector, it had the Nova Corp, which was also wasted in this film, despite giving me hope that I will one day see my boy Richard Rider in an MCU film. However, I will forgive this waste because they have the best moment in the movie.
Quill from Terra, raised from youth by a band of mercenaries called the Ravagers, led by Yondu Udanta.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know how this machine worked.
What a bunch of a-holes.
I've seen this movie a lot of times. It's still funny. I still crack up at Peter Serafinovich, I think that's the name. He is the Tick right now. I still laugh so much at that moment. It's incredible. But yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy were a success. Financially, critically, amongst the rabid rage of fans and fanboys that were going to see this movie, it was a success. Bar none. 100% fact. And the best thing about the Guardians of the Galaxy for me is that it comprehends its own insanity, it comprehends its own inherent silliness, and it explores it, it embraces it throughout the narrative. Doesn't shy away from compelling storytelling, however, as soon as we start this movie, we have Star-Lord sitting next to his dying mother, dying from cancer, and as she says for him to hold her hand, the kid is so afraid, he runs out, only to be kidnapped by aliens. I know that sounds weird, but it works in this film. And after this, we meet him years later as Star-Lord, a grown-ass Peter Quill played by Chris Pratt in one of Marvel's best intros, if we're honest. Guardians Guardians of the Galaxy's true strength lies on the jokes and dialogue as much as it lies on the characteristics of our individual characters and the individual hardships we learned they are faced to bring them together. Star-Lord was kidnapped on what was already the worst day of his life, and Chris Pratt is an admirable anchor for emotion as Star-Lord. He's basically what his young self and us fanboys imagine as kids that a badass space hero would be like. And Rocket and Groot are cleverly inserted into this movie as an already dynamic duo, much like Han and Chewie. And it's their immediate and naturally flowing banter that makes them work. They are also the scene stealers, both on the comedic and on the dramatic front. Exhibit A.
I got one plan, and that plan requires a frickin' Quarnix battery, so figure it out! Now, this is important. Once the battery is removed, everything is gonna slam into emergency mode. Once we have it, we gotta move quickly. So you definitely need to get that last.
Exhibit B.
Well, I didn't ask to get made. I didn't ask to be torn apart and put back together over and over and turned into some little monster.
Rocket, no one's calling you a monster.
He called me vermin. She called me rodent. Let's see if you can laugh after 5 or 6 good shots to you.
They're the funniest, they're the most compelling, they are the ones that range on both extremes of the film. And they are also miracles of animation and voice work as they seamlessly blend in the environment and interact with the characters around them. And Zoe Saldana as Gamora gives the best performance I have seen out of every movie she is in that I have seen, of course. She brings real depth to the deadliest woman in the galaxy. She's the stern one, but as much as the other characters have reason not to be like this, she has a reason to be like this.
No!
Ah, what the hell?
I know who you are, Peter Quill, and I am not some starry-eyed waif here to succumb to your pelvic sorcery!
But Batista as Drax the Destroyer was a true revelation of this film. I say this as a longtime WWE fan myself. Nobody, be it comic book fans or not, be it fans of Drax or not, be it Batista fans or not, were expecting this dude to be this great.
She betrayed Ronan. He's coming back for her. And when he does, that's when you...
Why would I put my finger on his throat?
What?
That was just an amalgamation of everything that makes Drax great in this film. There. The team coming together feels as organic as it could ever feel, with 4 out of the 5 chasing after the orb, aka an Infinity Stone because we need those, only to be captured and sent to prison. These 5 people amongst them either want Ronan himself or the orb, so it's only natural, it feels organic, that they would arrange a plan to come together to get what they want, because these are rascals, these are scoundrels, these are not good people. But it doesn't feel mechanic or plot devised that they come together, and they come together through the prison breakout sequence, which is so fucking great. And Ronan, brilliantly played by Lee Pace, is a big bad, menacing dude who wants revenge for his race and wants the orb. But he's not much more than that. We want to see him fail because we like the heroes so much, but there's not much more dimension to him. He is functional, he's effective, but that's really it. He is a fine villain. He's not one of the worst, he's not one of the best. Honestly, his biggest claim to fame is that he kills the other.
I'm Benicio!
While Nebula is a much more interesting looking and motivationally driven character than him, but she is overshadowed due to his presence. She doesn't get enough time to shine, which sucks extra points because she is also brilliantly played by the amazing, beautiful, spectacular, best companion ever, Amy Pond, aka Karen Gillan. Though it's pretty fucking cool that we get to see Thanos in his sitting down glory with all these powerful, menacing people bowing down before him, because despite as characters not being very well fleshed out or not very three-dimensional, we get that they are powerful, they are menacing, and that they get shit done.
Return to me again empty-handed, and I will bathe the Starways in your blood.
And right here, right now is where I will stir up a little controversy because I, the nerd who knew who they were before the movie, didn't love this movie as much as everyone else. While the characters work, their motivations are compelling and make sense for them to come together, their banter feels natural, and smartly the movie doesn't make them gel well as a team just like that, while it makes fun of the genre cliches in all the genres that are present here and understands how out there it is, it also goes against it one too many times. Since it has no deeper themes than team up is cool, the most heroic thing the movie does is avoid how serious the situation can actually be at sometimes.
Ooh, child, things are gonna get easier. Ooh, child, things will get brighter. Now bring it down hard. Someday, we'll put it together.
What are you doing?
Dance off, bro. Me and you.
That was example one. Another example is that on the third act, we actually are asked by the movie itself to be emotionally invested in this world-destroying menace that is going above Xandar against the Nova Corp as the faceless Nova Corp face the faceless Ronin Corp? And it feels weird because this is the third act, while the rest of the movie up until that point constantly laughs at this old trope. But don't get me wrong, the third act doesn't fail entirely because I do love the fight inside Ronin's ship. Every Guardian gets a chance to shine. Everybody shows why they're a needed part of the ensemble. Groot goes savage as fuck. Drax dishes out every drop of blood from a body he can find. Star-Lord reminds us why we like space opera heroes in the first place. Gamora and Nebula mercilessly beating the shit out of each other perfectly encapsulates the compelling aspect of this film, and as it turns out, of the sequel. Yes, this is an absurdly fun and funny space adventure, but the dramatic moments, though they work on the emotional spectrum, they hit when they need to hit. When I step back and think about it, the pacing is kind of off. They do get to the heartstrings, but in the narrative, they don't really flow. Number one example, this.
When did you learn to do that?
Pretty sure the answer is I am Groot.
Beautiful looking, heartfelt, makes the team come together for the first time, makes them feel like the family they are going to be from now on. But why? Why here? Why now? Why amongst this whole situation? But then again, the big finish due to that sacrifice works so freaking well.
You're immortal! How?
Said it yourself, bitch. We're the Guardians of the Galaxy.
That moment is a perfect encapsulation of where these characters came from, who they were in the beginning of the movie, and who they are at the end. Though come the end of the film, as they are embarking on their journey through space to become officially the Guardians of the Galaxy, I do think the reveal of Peter Quill's lineage does need a little more time to breathe. It's just thrown out there at the last minute to set up the sequel, which does work for the sequel, but in this moment, I thought it needed a little more time for us to absorb it and understand the real impact of it. But at the same time, that reveal works to show us that Peter Quill's humanity is what makes him compelling and the following moment so damn heartwarming.
You are the light of my life, my precious son, my little Star-Lord. Love, Mom.
That right there, if you didn't cry with any of Peter Quill's mother moments up until this point, you cried right there. Admit it, because this also, I forgot to mention it until now, the soundtrack for this movie, so awesome! I think I might have come across a little bit more negative than I wanted to, just because everyone else adored this movie. Look, I was the nerd who knew them before. I was the guy who already loved them before. And I do really, really, really like this movie a lot. it. The world is textured, well realized, feels complete, the charismatic characters are irreverent, and their dynamic banter and all-around dialogue hold the movie together. James Gunn, though not the best writer in my opinion, but as a director with this movie, he perfectly establishes himself as a king in the blockbuster landscape. Guardians of the Galaxy works on levels of comedy, sci-fi, action, space opera, while acknowledging all of them and all that comes with them, and it has enough heart at its core to be something more than simply entertaining. And that is why, despite not being the person who loves this movie most in the world, it gets a collector's item. What did you think of Guardians of the Galaxy, my beautiful geekies? Is it your favorite MCU movie? Is it not? Is it still the funniest MCU movie for you after Guardians 2, after Ant-Man, after Thor Ragnarok? Let me know all that in the comments below. One more movie before we reach the end of the road to Infinity War. Age of Ultron is coming next Sunday, the Sunday where I will already be living in London. Thank you so much for watching. You guys are the best. I still have reviews this week on my birthday still before I move to London, before this background goes away, so I can't wait to see you there for one last week with the pops, with the figures, and so until then, you stay beautiful, you stay geeky, and if you haven't done so yet, click the subscribe button and the bell so we can be geeky united!